Hello, Internet friend. Today on Value Side, the economic impact of the Iran-Israel war. I'm David Ravel. Well, on Friday, June 13th, remember the Jewish day begins at sundown, Israel attacked Iran. In an audacious move, the IDF managed to hit selected nuclear enrichment facilities, as well as assassinate several Iranian military leaders and atomic scientists. The back-and-forth volley of ballistic and hypersonic missiles, as well as drones and fighter jets, continues, with both sides indicating that this will be a long war lasting many days and perhaps weeks. Some of the financial markets reacted predictably, while others presented a surprise. Oil was the most predictable of all commodities, rising in price 5% on Friday. Investors can expect this price hike to continue for the foreseeable future as Iran effectively controls the Straits of Hormuz, through which a third of the world's natural gas and a quarter of its oil passes daily. Iran can be expected to shut off petroleum shipments to the allies of Israel, which most certainly would include the United States. Look for prices at the gas pump to rise. The last time this happened, we saw an immediate spike in inflation. This will present a significant challenge to the Federal Reserve, which has vowed to fight rising prices. The FOMC, the committee responsible for setting short-term interest rates, is scheduled to meet next on July 29-30. Almost no one expects the Fed to make a move at this meeting. So the next meeting will be held on September 16 and 17. Many analysts expected the Fed to lower interest rates by at least 25 basis points at this meeting. However, the probable rising in inflation, driven by those higher gas prices, will likely prevent the Fed from easing its current monetary stance. Look for no change in the Fed policy for at least the next 2 quarters. Now, perhaps the most curious response in the financial markets was that of the U.S. Treasuries, a reaction that investors have come to expect. It is understood that the bond prices usually rise during periods of economic hardship, and few times could be more problematic than a major war in the Middle East. Yet, surprisingly, U.S. government bonds across all maturities declined. While the decline was only fractional, it reveals the difficult position the federal government will find itself in. It will come as no surprise that the U.S. is facing a financial crisis. Current government debt is rapidly closing in on $37 trillion. At least part of this debt is attributable to the roughly $1 trillion defense budget. And buried within that budget, and perhaps others like State Department, is the ongoing support for the war in Ukraine. As the war has continued, the United States has taken on the lion's share of financial support for the country of Ukraine, including supporting various government operations. Now, this is not to argue that other countries are not supporting Ukraine. Rather, it is to suggest that American support is proving to be a burden on our already indebted government. Well, Israel presents yet another burden, likely to be even more intense, because unlike Ukraine, Israel has become almost entirely dependent upon U.S. support, both militarily and financially. With one port already effectively closed by Ansar Allah and another one threatened, Israel's economy appears to be grinding to a halt. No doubt, the American taxpayer will be expected to make up any shortfall. As this war continues, look for the U.S. government debt to expand, not fall, and that's the reason Treasury bonds are acting strangely. Finally, the Trump administration has opened up a credibility problem at a time when it is most needed. A brief recap of the events leading up to the Israeli attack goes like this. On June 12, Trump emphasized, not for the first time, that his administration remains committed to negotiations. Quote, "We remain committed to a diplomatic resolution to the Iranian nuclear issue," Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform. With the sixth round of negotiations scheduled for Sunday, June 15, the Iranians naturally expected this comment to show the Americans' commitment to diplomatic solutions. Regrettably, that was not the case. Instead, it now appears that Trump's remarks were meant to deceive, to lull Iran into believing that, at least for the time being, negotiations and not war would be forthcoming. But as the world now knows, it was on Friday that Israel commenced its devastating attacks, decapitating much of Iran's military leadership and destroying at least one nuclear facility. Immediately following the attacks, President Trump would tell Reuters, quote, "We knew everything, and I tried to save Iran humiliation and death. I tried to save them very hard because I would have loved to have seen the deal work out," Trump said. It was a claim that he would make to other news services, so the claim that he was committed to negotiations was in reality a ruse, a very effective deception designed to obscure the coming onslaught of Israeli jets, missiles, and drones. Now, the results of this strategy, while tactically successful, have been immediately condemned by many in the international community, most specifically by China, Russia, India, and the other leaders of the BRICS, the very countries that Trump now needs to endorse the tariffs. We can expect those negotiations to become highly problematic in the days and weeks ahead. While it's much too early to make any definitive statement on the military results of this conflict, the economic projections of the war look pretty straightforward. We should expect a resumption in inflation, driven principally by the price of petroleum, particularly gasoline at the pump. This trend began when oil futures on Friday and should continue. Second, we should expect the financial burden on the U.S. to increase as this new conflict also continues. Look for efforts to rein in the national debt to have a significant headwind. And finally, we should expect great difficulty in tariff negotiations, especially those with countries aligned with Iran. And that's today's Value Side. For all of our articles, references, and podcasts, visit valueside.com. I'm David Revell. ValueSide is independently written and researched. The views expressed are strictly my own.